It's the beginning of 2021. Progress on gender diversity has been slow, and we're still 100 years away from achieving parity. So while we've absolutely made progress in certain areas in narrowing the gap a bit, the impact of the pandemic may regress all the progress we have made so far, and it's therefore critical to keep these discussions in the spotlight. We know inclusion and diversity are critical for business recovery, resilience, and reimagination. Joining me today is Uma Rao, the Vice President HR at Ashok Leyland, who has over 2 decades of HR experience across a wide segment of industries and is very passionate about driving high performances. Let's hear her story so we can learn from C-suite women leaders across functions on what works for them and how they make it work. Thank you for joining us, Uma.
Thank you so much.
Uma, what are some traits you think great leaders possess?
I think through times, there are certain things that stood out and they will stand out forever. I think one is genuine care for people with whom you work. Number 2 is having a clarity of what you're trying to do. Things are going to be ambiguous, but great leaders are one who are able to bring that clarity. And the third one I would feel is a lot of courage. Courage, risk-taking, all of that comes with that. But I think these are the traits that make great leaders.
What is one leadership lesson you've learned in your career that you swear by?
This is very interesting. This is, relatively early in my career where I used to handle industrial relations. And there were a lot of issues in the plant. And it was an essential supply, so which means it would meet the eye of the government in case something didn't work as per plan. So very, very precarious situation most of the times. And that's when people actually like to take you for a ride because they know that they'll be heard. And one of the things that I learned at that stage from one of the managers who was in the operations, he said, when the darts are being fired at you, learn to duck, okay? You have to duck because you have to stay in the game. Only if you stay in the game, you can play the game. So, don't stand up and become a martyr there trying to have a point of view. I think the smartest thing is to learn to duck. And I think that stayed in my mind forever. If you want to play the game, better be in it. Don't get out of it.
Uma, as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career and how did you overcome it?
I think as you grow up the ladder, I feel that people feel more intimidated if you're a confident professional. And so there is a very big chance that, the growth path doesn't appear in front of you as you would envisage. Because there would always be some reason to say why this can't be done and why that can't be done. And I think that is a barrier one has to come across. Many times you would find men grow in the same organization to extraordinary heights. But that doesn't happen with a lot of women who join to grow to extraordinary heights. I think that is where the challenge lies in terms of overcoming that feeling of a competitiveness, which actually takes the turn for the worse, if not for the better. Now, how did I overcome that? I think, firstly, you shouldn't look at barriers. I think sometimes it's good to be blind. You mustn't look at anything. But when you come to a stage where you think things are not going as per your own plan of how you should be growing, I think I have learned that look at your career in multiple ways. It's like a Rubik's Cube. There's so many sides to it. There's just not one way to growth. And so one of the things you have to learn is, why is this kind of a feeling coming? Is it because you're not reaching enough people? Is it because you've not created traction with a lot of people? So I think it's very important to take horizontal assignments, take up things you're not familiar with, challenge yourself in a way that surprises everybody around. And when you have these kind of quick wins around you, or even slow wins, let's say, I think it puts you in a much better position to challenge the status quo with regard to a career.
Uma, we've seen the acceleration of digital adoption in this wake of pandemic. As an HR leader, do you see this? How do you see this impacting the workplace? And do you think it will drive more inclusion of women in the workplace?
So I feel that digital is the most logical thing to have happened to our world at this stage. And the pandemic did the right trick at the right time, I would say, more than ever before. What it does is, I think in general, it gives a lot more flexibility to workplace. and organizations, because they can actually look at talent in a very wide perspective now compared to before. Let me give you one example. We're based at Chennai, and Chennai wasn't the hottest destination for a lot of people to come from other parts of the country. Today, that seems not such a big issue, right, compared to the past, because many things we're able to do from any other place as well. For example, why would I have my entire PR machinery sitting in Chennai when, Mumbai is the happening place, or something else, my defense business sitting out of Delhi, for example, where most of the government establishments related to defense are there. So I think, the acceptance of being any place has become much better because of the digital world. I was listening to the Prime Minister today in one of the speeches that he made, and he said, we made a big revolution in terms of telecom in India, and we're going to be producing a lot more of telecom in India. And he says, 50% of the digital usage in India is in the villages. So we're talking about women, not just in the corporate sector. We're talking about highly talented people in tier B, tier C, and villages who are going to have opportunities, and our talent pool is going to change dramatically because of that. So I think entrepreneurship, micro-entrepreneurship will benefit heavily from digital, and the biggest force is for the women to capitalize this.
Uma, can you share some more insights into your professional journey? What do you think has been your key differentiator?
So for one thing, I think I've lived my professional life full on. Let me tell you that. I have not bound myself to a place or to a type of industry or to a type of role. And I think that's been the most enriching experience of my life. And that baptism by fire in the early years, getting Nexel threats to do recruitment in some of the interior parts of AP where I was, and I didn't dare to tell my parents that, because they wouldn't have allowed me to do anything after that. But I think it was absolutely great that I had such supportive colleagues. I actually reached out a lot for support. I never felt that I shouldn't ask them, or what would they think about me and things like that. And I think that openness has helped. So the early years allowed me to be courageous and explore things. In the mid years, I think it was about learning about people management, how to deal with others to get jobs done. It's not about individual brilliance. It's about collective success. It was a hard thing, right? Especially when you always grow up looking at only your individual success and how smart you are, to moving to a situation where you say that there are many other people who are smart. And so, walk along with all of them. And I think that was a very powerful lesson in my life, and men and women. And that's the time I started looking at more women colleagues around me and saying that how can we make it better for them? Because I have tasted something and they should also do that. So starting with a little bit of irritation at the start, saying, why do women behave like this? So moving to a situation to understand and empathize, because my own life journey was happening, to understand now what happens when you get married, what happens when you have children and things like that. I think it was a discovery of sorts for me. And to now in the senior levels for more than a decade now, I think it's about making other people succeed like never before. I think this has been, in a nutshell, my whole journey. So learning at the start, earning after that, and now giving, if I were to say that. Yeah.
I'd love to get your sense in terms of how you manage parenting and work together and manage to live a guilt-free balance.
Well, Mankiran, I wish life was like an ice cream, to have a guilt-free version and a guilty version, but that's not how it works. But I think it's a very, very good point, and this is so valid for most of the women who go through this, big conflict at this stage. And I also went through all of that. Let me be honest. The time when I had to take my maternity leave, it always seemed that I'm going to miss out on my career. People are going to just keep me in the cold storage. Like typically ratings are messed around with and promotions are not given because of that and things like that. Definitely it played, because I do want to take my career. I did want to take my career forward at that time. I didn't have any plans of being at home and things like that. So it was definitely a concern. And I was working till the very last, I would say a few days before I actually delivered, and then I had to travel from there. So there were certain anxieties, and I would not shy away from saying that. But I think what worked in my favor is I kept in touch with my boss, and I kept in touch with my colleagues during the period. Not so much to find out what work is happening and things like that, but just to say a hi and a hello every now and then, so that you are in the radar of thinking. And definitely, I didn't do any work because I was very clear this is a break for me.
Uma, what has been the most rewarding project you worked for, and what have your takeaways been on that experience?
It's a life rich with experiences, Mankiran. It's so difficult to pick up one and say this is what it is. But I think in the shop floor, this company had started some really good work, and we've managed to get a lot of women at the shop floor. And it's an absolute pleasure to see them over there and performing well, and now raising their hand to move out of those locations into other locations. These are young women. And you can see that they want to fly with their wings soaring in the sky. And if I could just add one second one, when I was with Tata Consultancy, I took over as the HR leader for Ibero-America, which is South America, Portugal, and Spain. I think it was an assignment full of challenges, very tough, but absolutely the most memorable in my career. Because you're in a place which is not the safest in the world. I was with a child on top of that. English is not spoken there. And you had to set up a whole HR department over there across 4 or 5 countries. I think it was amazing looking back.
Most challenging assignments are sometimes the most rewarding ones as well, absolutely. Right? And most memorable for sure.
Sure.
So, Uma, this section, then my last question to you is, what are your top 3 recommendations or advice for women in the workforce so that they could reach your level of success?
I think one of the things is, as I said, stay put. Put that Fevicol ka jod if you have to, and stay there. Don't give up. Most of the times people wait for a time when you're going to give up. Because, in this journey, this is what is important, how long you're able to stay. So don't give up. That's number 1. Number 2 is seek help. Please seek help. Never think that you become weaker or less powerful by asking for help. There are so many good people out there who are willing to help if only you ask. And I think that's something very important, especially as a woman, you have to ask for all the help. That help is not in terms of asking someone to do your Excel sheet and do your assignment. That's not what you should be. But I'm talking more in terms of sometimes with your family situation, with your child, or timings, flexibility. There are a lot of people who are willing to help. And by the way, you have to help in return. If you take help from your in-laws, you have to help them too. If you take help from your friends, you have to help them too. Don't take anybody for granted in your life. And finally, and above all, and the backdrop of everything, please be continuously competitive. Build your competencies. These are very important.
Quick rapid fire then. What's the next country on your travel bucket list?
Next country is New Zealand.
What's your favorite junk food?
Junk food. Samosa.
Favorite web series?
Patal Lok, which is very good. And the other one was 4 More Shots. I really enjoyed that on the web.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
So courageous, humorous, and caring.
And what's your favorite quote?
So there's one which sticks to my life all the time. If not now, when? If not us, who? This was said by John F. Kennedy, and that's my signature in my email as well. Yeah.
What would the title of your autobiography be?
Wow, this is a difficult one, but let me try. Keep going. You're almost there.
Okay, so Zoom or Teams?
Teams.
Short-term goals or long-term goals?
Short-term.
Uma, thank you very much for sharing all your insights. I know I've taken a bunch of them. The next time there are darts fired, know when to duck. Thinking of your career as a Rubik Cube and knowing that there are multifaceted approaches to progressing, celebrating the baptism by fire in your early career, focusing on the collective success and not your individual brilliance, and making sure you know when to seek help. And finally, making sure that when you come back to work, You're not coming back in parts. You're not an episode. You're not coming back in parts. So come back fully into the workforce. So thank you very much. Great lessons, great real stories from your career journey that I know will benefit many others in celebrating theirs.
Thank you so much, Mankiran. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and compliments to the work you're doing, and wishing you the very best.